Hello, Rockdale Magnet. It's Mr. Bolin and my virtual teaching assistant, Doug the Pug. And today, we're going to talk ISEF paperwork. So if you're ready to fill out your ISEF paperwork and you want to get it right the first time, then join me on this paperwork tutorial. Okay, a logical place to begin this tutorial is with ISEF Form number 1, the checklist for the adult sponsor. I would point out that this year, our adult sponsors will be a parent or a guardian that will be sponsoring the student. This is a different designation than the designated supervisor, which we'll talk about later. However, the adult sponsor and the designated supervisor can be the same person. So I wanted to clear that up, clarify that with you right now. On line number 1, the student name, that's pretty straightforward. I would just point out that if it is a team project, you should put the all team members' names on this line. So if it's 2 students, you can put both of their names on this student name line. For the project title, a reminder: project title should not be longer than 65 characters. That is a rule for the state and the International Science Fair, so we do abide by that rule at our local school fair. And so please make sure that your titles aren't longer than 65 characters. The other thing that I would point out with regards to title and completing your paperwork, please make sure that your title is the same on all forms. So we do see each year forms that have different titles on each form, and we don't really know what the actual title is. And that does matter to students a great deal at the science fair. We'd like to get those titles right, and making sure that that title is consistent across all forms will help us do that. Please review questions 1, 2, and 3 and check off. All students, all paperwork should have 1, 2, and 3 reviewed and checked off. We do see some variability with question number 4. In other words, question 4 will change from project to project. Most commonly, I think that number 4 will be blank. Okay, there will be nothing checked for question number 4. However, if you are, for example, doing a project with human subjects, if you are setting out to survey people and learn something about human subjects, then you would check accordingly. Okay. If you plan to work with vertebrate animals, you would let us know that by checking the vertebrate animal column. If you are planning on working with potentially hazardous biological agents, and those are microorganisms, rDNA, or tissues, you would click accordingly. Now, with that said, I don't anticipate many students this year working with vertebrate animals or potentially hazardous biological agents, because typically that would require a lab environment, and students will be doing their projects this year in the at-home setting. If you feel like you need to check the vertebrate animal or the potentially hazardous biological agent box, please talk to your research teacher or send me an email, and I will discuss that with you. I do think we'll have some students doing survey work, so if you are one of those students, it's fine to go ahead and check that. But we would like to make sure that we get this question as accurate as possible, because checking these boxes triggers additional approvals that the student will need to gain. So it will be to everyone's benefit if we get this as accurate as possible. Question number 5. This box should be checked by all projects, and all students will do Form 1, ISEF Form 1A. All students will provide a research plan. All students will do Form 1B. In terms of a regulated research institution, it is most likely that you will leave this box blank because Rockdale Magnet School is not a regulated research institution. Regulated research institutions are typically research universities or industrial settings that have special licenses to be able to do research with animal and various other model organisms. We do not have those licenses. We are a high school with a research focus, not a regulated research institution. The continuation box would only be checked if you are continuing a project from a previous year. In terms of the ISEF paperwork, that means that you have competed with this project before at a science fair. It doesn't mean that you started this project in the spring and now are going to collect the data in the fall. That is really the same research project. It's only if you've competed with this in the past would you check the continuation box. So what you see right now for question 5 is kind of what I anticipate being the most common choices for box 5. That's what most forms are going to look like. And we will now move down to the bottom of the form. So if in question 4, you checked that you would be working with human subjects, you will check also down here, and this Form 1 tells you that you will need to do Form 4, a sample consent form, and a qualified scientist form. You will find those on the ISEF website. If you didn't check that you were working with humans in question 4, you should not need to check below. We've already addressed vertebrate animals and potentially hazardous biological agents, but if you discover that you are working with those items, you would check accordingly below. Once again, I don't anticipate many students working in that way. So we'll move on to the hazardous chemicals, activities, and devices. We don't anticipate students working with hazardous chemicals, activities, and devices, but we do want students to do a risk assessment this year for everything that they order. That is just good safety practice. So we're going to ask that you check the risk assessment box here. We're also going to ask this year for students to do the qualified scientist form, Form 2. Students, this year your qualified scientist will be your research teacher. However, I don't want you to check the box right here because this is for projects involving DEA controlled substance. We do not work with DEA controlled substances at Rockdale Magnet School. We don't have the proper licenses for that. That certainly is not something that we ever do. So we're not going to check that box. Okay, we're only going to check the risk assessment box right here. We're going to leave the other blank down here. We are going to have you read and abide by the ethics statement. And then at the bottom, this is where you are going to type and include your adult sponsor's name. Once again, your adult sponsor is going to be any adult or guardian in the home who is going to sponsor your work. The date of review, you can go ahead and put the date that you fill this form out. The key to the date is that this needs to be reviewed or dated prior to your project beginning. Phone number and an email for your adult sponsor. We also are going to be able to accept digital signatures this year, so go ahead, click and follow the digital signature instructions that Adobe provides you. Once you have finished that, make sure that you save it, and that will be a complete Form 1. What I want to do to end this tutorial is kind of to give you an example of what I think the most common submission types will look. So you're going to put your name on line 1. Your project title. Again, everyone will check boxes 1, 2, and 3. Most typically, box 4 will be left blank. Box 5 will have Form 1, 1A, 1B, and a research plan. Most students won't need to do any work in this area. Everyone is going to do the risk assessment process regardless of project. Everyone will check the ethics statement, and then below, the adult sponsors will fill out this information in detail. You will save it, and that will successfully complete your ISEF Form 1. Thank you. All right, so Doug and I appreciate your patience. We appreciate your hard work on Form 1. We know it's a lot to get through, but it is a very important form. With that being said, we're ready to move on to Form 1A, the student checklist. Let's do so now. Okay, so let's move on to Form 1A, the student checklist. Students, this form is for you to fill out to give information regarding your project. On the first line, you're going to put your name. If this is a team project, you're going to put the team leader's name. So students, it is important for team projects that you meet with your teammates and decide who the team leader is. Of course, your grade, your school email, and your phone number all are important. And if you're a team project, your team members' names, please include them on lines B and C. Once again, you're going to put your project title on line 2. Quick reminder, project titles are limited to 65 characters. Project titles need to be consistent throughout the paperwork. You go to Rockdale Magnet School. Our phone number is 770-483-8737. We are located at 930 Roland Road in beautiful Conyers, Georgia. Our zip code is 30012. Please remember that your adult sponsor is your parent or your guardian, whomever is going to sponsor your work. Please provide their phone or email. I usually run out of space when I'm typing these, so I either give my phone or my email. Please ask your adult sponsor what they are most comfortable providing. Question number 5 says, does this project need prior approval? The default is no, but some projects do need prior approval. The way that you would know that is by referring back to form number 1. If you look in form number 1 in question number 4, if you checked any box in form 4, then your project is going to need prior approval. For example, if you had checked the human subjects project, you're going to do a behavior science project, you're going to survey members of the community, then you are someone who is going to need prior approval on the checklist. So you would check yes. Okay. I do anticipate that most students are not going to need prior approval due to some of the limitations of the at-home research process. But if you do, you can check that. For your tentative start date, that is exactly what it says. When do you think you're going to start? And by start, the paperwork wants to know when you start collecting data. So while we realize you have already started your work on your projects, we're talking specifically here about collecting data. Please just give your best estimate. Is this a continuation from a previous year? Once again, if you have competed with a project like this before, the answer would be yes. However, if you've never competed with a project like that, you would choose no. This question 6 should be consistent with form 1, where you checked continuation or not checked continuation right here. If you are doing a continuation project, if you have competed with a similar project in the past, you do need to attach your previous year's abstract and your previous year's research plan. Furthermore, you will have to explain how this project you were doing this year is different from your previous year, and you will do that on your ISEF form number 7 that you will also have to include. For number 7, this is your actual start and end dates. You probably don't know what your actual start and end dates are, so please feel free to leave that blank. It is okay to leave that blank at this time and submit it blank. We can fill that in later. You're going to put your source of your data. Most students are going to collect the data themselves. If you are doing a project where you are collecting data over the internet, you can add the URL here. You're going to list the name and address of all non-home or non-school work sites down below. Again, pretty straightforward. And then as part of Form 1, you will have to, as part of Form 1A, you will have to complete a research plan. Students, you should have received extensive instruction in your research classes regarding completing your research plans. The next page in the paperwork really outlines the research plan that you should have done in class. So I will be taking that research plan and combining it with your Form 1A to complete this submission, and that will complete Form 1A. Doug and I thank you for a great Form 1A. And we want to remind you that great Form 1As and great research plans really have a lot to do with PUGs. That's right, when you write your research plan, it needs to be well written. It needs to have good punctuation, good usage, good grammar, and great spelling. Remember, all that stuff matters when folks are reviewing your paperwork and approving your projects. So when you think about great paperwork, think about PUGs, proper punctuation, usage, grammar, and spelling. Let's move on to Form 1B. We are now ready to move on to the approval form, Form 1B. Each student needs to complete a Form 1B, including all team members. So if this is a team project with 2 students, we would expect to see 2 Form 1Bs in place. With that being said, Form 1B is likely the simplest of all the ISEF forms. Form B simply requires that the student and parent read the following statements and acknowledge them, and then sign and date accordingly. So this really is as simple as reading, signing, and dating. The key here is that the dates need to be in place, like it says, prior to experimentation. So please do this before you get started. That's why it's essential that we complete this paperwork prior to experimentation. I would also point out that Sections 2 and Section 3 are to be completed by the local or affiliated fair or the ISEF affiliated fair SRC. So students, you really don't need to be worrying about Sections 2 and 3. All that is required for you to gain approval is to complete Section 1 of Form 1B and collect the necessary signatures and dates. Let's take a look at ISEF Form number 2, the Qualified Scientist Form. I would point out that this year we are going to require that all student projects complete the Qualified Scientist Form. Students, you are going to use your research teacher as your qualified scientist. So again, your qualified scientist will be your research teacher. You're going to put your name and all names of your team members at the top of the form, and once again, you're going to put your title that does not exceed 65 characters and is consistent throughout the forms on the title page. Your teacher will provide you with their information, their qualified scientist information. You are looking here at an example of Mr. Robinson's qualified scientist information, filled out completely. Again, here Mr. Robinson students will use his information. He will provide you with that. Your teacher will provide you with their information. With that being said, the teachers have reviewed the ISEF rules relevant to really all projects. We will answer that yes. In number 2, students, we will ask that you consider, will your project use any of the following? Typically, students are going to put no in these boxes. This is especially true during at-home research. However, we do anticipate some students will be doing behavior science projects, utilizing human participants. Some students will be designing prototypes and asking others to test it and to give feedback. In those cases, that would be a human participant project. They would answer yes. But once again, most students will have no's really down the list here for number 2. Will this study be the subset of a larger study? That typically is no. If you think you are doing a subset of a larger study, please talk to your research teacher before checking yes. But again, most students, I would say 99% of them, will check no for box 3. So this question is really for the teacher. Will you directly supervise the student? Students, we know the teacher likely will not be directly supervising you because we are working at home. So that is going to be a no. Since the teacher will not be directly supervising you, who will serve as your designated supervisor? That will be a parent or a guardian in your home. This may be the person that you've already identified as your adult sponsor. It may be someone different, but the designated supervisor will be the person who is responsible for directly supervising your work on a day-to-day basis, most likely your parent or guardian, and you would provide that information here. For the experience and the training of the designated supervisor, please write that out. We are going to try to provide some tutorials for the designated supervisors. So we've mentioned that tutorial here. However, parents, I do encourage you to be honest. If you don't have training or you feel like you need training, you can write that in box B. Once again, your research teachers will be your qualified scientist. We will put your research teacher's name here. They will sign it digitally with a date. I will collect these signatures once we get these forms turned in. Your designated supervisors, your parent or guardian does need to fill out this section, sign, date, a phone, and an email address so that we can contact them if need be. So once again, take takeaways for this is that this year, your research teacher will serve as your qualified scientist. They have already reviewed the ISEF rules. Most typically on question 2, we're going to get no's. We almost never do projects that are a subset of a larger study. We also know that this year your teachers will not be directly supervising you. It will be a parent or a guardian in your home who will be. For the experience and training question, you can certainly answer that honestly. If you have experience in training, answer accordingly. If not, please put that you need more and we will work to get you that. Again, teacher down here for qualified scientists, designated supervisors, information here. Once you have completed all sections of Form 2, you are ready to move to the next form. The final form that we're going to ask all students to fill out this year is the risk assessment form, Form 3. I think the key to understanding Form 3 is this line right here, that Form 3 is to be completed by the student researchers in collaboration with their designated supervisor and their qualified scientists. So students, you'll need to really consult all of these people as you complete Form 3. Starting out, you'll put your name at the top. You'll put your project title below it. Again, I'm just asking that you be consistent among all forms. Moving on, you will complete all sections of Form 3. One of the common mistakes that I see from year to year is students who skip entire questions when completing Form 3. It is important that you completely consider and answer all questions on Form 3. For line 1, it says to list all hazardous chemicals, activities, and devices that will be used. This year, if you are ordering something through the school, we are going to require that you assess the risks of that order. Therefore, if you order something from school, it needs to appear as part of your list on number 1. So please list all items that you order from school, in addition to anything else that you consider to be hazardous, under question 1. For question 2, where it says to identify and assess the risk, you need to do exactly that. You need to talk to your parents, your designated supervisors, you need to talk to your teacher, your qualified scientist, and you need to research these items online to identify and assess the risks. You'll write sentences that detail and assess the risk of each item that you're using and each item that you are ordering, and do so on question 2. Question 3, you're going to describe the safety precautions and procedures that will be used to reduce the risks. There are really two keys to this. Number 1, that you can describe what safety precautions you are taking, and number 2, that you express that you are working hard to reduce the risk to both you and any participants that might be a part of the study. Question 4 is pretty straightforward. Describe the disposal procedures that will be used. So please describe that here. If you have questions about how to properly dispose of something, please talk to your designated supervisor, your qualified scientist, and consult online resources. For your sources of safety information, again, you may mention these discussions, you may mention the instruction that you received in research class, and you may list and provide any URLs for websites that you may go to, and please list that here. This form is really attempting to force you to assess the risk of all items that you use so that you can have or you can conduct research in the most safe manner possible. That's really the goal of the Risk Assessment Form 3. Once you've completed the form, your designated supervisor, again, that will be your parent or your guardian who is supervising your project, will need to complete the bottom of the form by filling out and signing the appropriate lines below. Where it says experience and training, we are again going to provide some tutorials for parents in terms of being a designated supervisor. But if you've never done anything like this before, parents, don't be afraid to say that you haven't. We always want to be honest when we're doing this process, and we certainly are going to provide training. However, we don't want you, we want you to be as honest as possible. That's the key. That is a summary of the risk assessment form. Once again, students, I will just reiterate that if you order something through the magnet school, it is important that all items ordered be listed on Form 3 and thoroughly discussed. Congratulations, everyone. Doug and I know that the ISEF paperwork can be hard. We know it can be confusing, we know it can be time consuming, and I understand that it can be frustrating, but we also know that it's an important part of the research process. Make sure you turn this paperwork in to your teachers. They'll give you more details about that in class, and make sure that you have the forms handy as you get ready to submit your order form online. I look forward to seeing these projects take shape as they move from research plan to research presentation in the winter. Students, good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work at the Science Fair.